When you hear the title The Art of War, you probably picture these epic battles, right? Clashing swords, ancient military tactics, the whole shebang. But what if I told you this 2,000-year-old book is actually less about fighting and more about how to win without ever having to fight? Yeah, let's dive into this, because Sun Tzu's masterpiece is honestly one of the most misunderstood and most relevant guides to strategy ever written.
To really get to the heart of it, we have to start with one central question. And this question pretty much frames his entire philosophy. What does Sun Tzu consider the absolute best, the most skillful form of victory? Is it just completely crushing your enemy on the battlefield? A big show of overwhelming power? Well, the answer might surprise you.
And there it is. The supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without ever drawing your sword. That one idea, right there, transforms this book from some dusty military manual into a really deep philosophy on how to handle conflict, how to lead, and how to make smart decisions. It's not about destruction, it's about getting what you want with the least amount of cost possible.
So, here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll look at why this is about more than just the battlefield. Then, we'll hit 3 core pillars: how to win before you even start, the importance of quick action, and how to adapt on the fly. And then we'll see why all these ancient ideas are, believe it or not, more relevant than ever.
Okay, so first things first, this is not just a book about war. Not really. It's a guide to navigating pretty much any competitive situation you can think of. Sun Tzu's core lesson is that knowing what's going on, intelligence and psychological insight, is way more powerful than just brute force. And that's why these lessons pop up everywhere, from a corporate boardroom to a political debate.
This brings us right to the first pillar, which is my favorite: winning before you fight. For Sun Tzu, the outcome of any conflict is pretty much decided long before anyone makes a move. Victory isn't about luck, it's the direct result of doing your homework, of superior preparation, and of having a crystal clear view of the situation.
So how do you prepare? Well, Sun Tzu breaks it down into 5 key things to analyze. First, moral law. Is your side unified? Is everyone on the same page? Second, heaven. This is about timing and external conditions. Is the climate right for your move? Third, earth. What's the actual terrain you're operating in? Fourth, command. How good is the leadership? Are they wise, credible, decisive? And finally, method. How's your organization and your supply chain? According to Sun Tzu, if you analyze these 5 things, you can basically predict the winner.
And the foundation for all of this, the one thing that holds it all together, is intelligence. Information. Sun Tzu actually dedicates his entire last chapter to the use of spies because having accurate info is the bedrock of any good strategy. You just can't make a plan if you don't know what your opponent is up to, and just as importantly, what you yourself are capable of. Which leads us to one of his most famous lines. And this isn't just some nice-sounding proverb, it's a practical formula. When you have a deep, honest understanding of your own strengths and weaknesses, and you have that same level of insight into your opponent, well, you've already set the stage for victory, long before the battle even starts.
Okay, but what if a fight is just unavoidable? What do you do then? That brings us to our second pillar. If you absolutely have to engage, Sun Tzu's advice is simple and direct. Be decisive, be efficient, and above all, be fast. A long, drawn-out conflict is always a losing game for everyone. And the difference here is night and day. A long conflict just drains your resources, it tanks morale, and it creates chaos that benefits nobody. The alternative is what Sun Tzu calls an attack by stratagem. You can think of it like a surgical strike. The goal isn't to obliterate the enemy, but to hit your objective so quickly and so decisively that the fight is over before it really even gets going. It minimizes the cost for everybody.
And what's the real target of that swift action? It's not necessarily their army or their assets, it's their will to fight. You can do this through clever diplomacy, by breaking up their alliances, or by using misinformation. The bottom line is, if you can make your opponent believe that fighting you is just a lost cause, then you've already won.
So you've done your homework, and you're ready to act fast. But what happens when things go sideways? When the situation on the ground changes? This brings us to pillar number 3, adaptability. Sun Tzu famously says that a great strategist should be like water. It has no fixed shape, it adapts to whatever container it's in, and it always finds the path of least resistance. This boils down to a core tactical idea. You never engage your opponent where they are strongest. That's just a fool's errand. Real strategy is about creating and then exploiting an imbalance. You find their weak spots, the gaps in their planning, the flaws in their argument, their unguarded side, and that is exactly where you strike. To do this, Sun Tzu talks about 2 kinds of forces:
First, you have the direct force, or Zhang. This is the obvious move, the one everyone expects. It's the army you show your opponent. Its main job is to get their attention and pin them in place.
But the win, the victory, comes from the indirect force, or qi. This is the surprise move, the clever maneuver they never see coming. By combining the direct force to keep them busy and the indirect force to hit them where they're vulnerable, you create this overwhelming momentum that leads to a quick, decisive win.
And at the end of the day, no plan survives contact with reality, right? A rigid, inflexible strategy is just a recipe for disaster. A truly great leader is a master of situational awareness, always adjusting their tactics to the flow of events as they happen.
Which brings us to our final section, and maybe the most important question of all. Why are we still talking about a 2,000-year-old text? The answer is simple. Its wisdom is timeless, because it applies so far beyond any ancient battlefield.
I mean, just think about it for a second. In a business negotiation, you're trying to understand your counterpart's weaknesses to find a better deal. A great marketing campaign uses those indirect methods, that qi, to grab your attention. Even in sports, a team will run a direct play up the middle to draw in the defense, only to strike unexpectedly on the outside. Preparation, speed, adaptability, these principles are everywhere.
So if you take one thing away from all this, let it be this. The art of war teaches us that true strategy is a mental game. It's about perception, about controlling the narrative, and about deeply understanding what makes people tick. Violence is the absolute lowest form of strategy. Intellectual and psychological dominance, now that is the highest.
And so, I'll leave you with a question to chew on. Think about the challenges in your own life. Maybe a tough negotiation at work, a personal rivalry, a goal that just seems impossible. How could you apply these ideas? What conflict could you win, not by confronting it head-on, but by outthinking it before it ever really begins?